Next up, we've got Scott Caldwell, the Chief Executive Officer of SolGold. Scott, as I said, is the Chief Executive and President of SolGold Ecuador. He's a seasoned mining engineer with a remarkable track record spanning over 40 years in the global mining industry. Throughout his career, he's held senior executive and operating positions and acquired extensive experience building and managing gold and base metal mines worldwide. He's contributed to mining projects in diverse regions such as the US, Canada, Russia, Zimbabwe, Chile and Indonesia. Scott brings his knowledge and expertise to SolGold in Ecuador and its flagship Cascabel acid deposit, one of the largest undeveloped copper gold deposits in the world. Please join me in welcoming Scott to the podium.
Well, thank you for the introduction. There is cautionary language in this thing that addresses what he just read to you, so we don't need to talk about it. Anyway, there's a language in there in fine print. It says most of that was true. Moving on to this, I'll start with a little bit about supply and demand, and I think there's probably people that are far more experienced and more of an expert with this, but just it's a cluttered table there, but if you look at the three bars on the left, my left, your right, and the left of the slide, basically there's going to be a shortage in copper of anywhere from 4 million metric tons in the next 10 years to something like 12. This is an independent study that was done in 2022 of July. So there's a shortage in copper coming. The copper price doesn't reflect that right now, although it isn't bad at about 8,500 bucks a ton. So shortage in copper. As we all know, copper is part of the key of the new green, the decarbonization, right? Connects everything. SolGold, a little bit about us, market cap of roughly what, 600 million US. We've got a huge resource at Cascabel, our flagship project. It's a large porphyry, very large, 2.6 billion tons. Pick a mining rate, close to 100-year mine life if you want to project it out. But what we're interested in, and we're going to spend a little time, there's a high-grade core inside this thing of about 442 million tons and about 1.4% copper equivalent. And we'll talk about this phased approach we're working on now, where we start with a smaller mine and slowly expand to around 25 million tons a year over like a 10-year horizon. So it's a very big project, very, very large deposit, porphyry, copper, gold. Ecuador, you know, we consider it open for business. On the bottom of the slide, you can see who's there right now. A couple of the companies there, BHP and Newcrest, soon to be Newmont, are shareholders of the project, and there's a little slide later in the presentation, but they own about 20% between the two. The rest of the shares, we have JCC, Jiangxi Copper is a strategic holder. They own about 5%. And then I personally own close to 20 million shares, which is kind of lost in the rounding error when you got 1 billion shares, 3 billion shares outstanding. But a lot of people are coming to Ecuador. Why? It's the right rocks. There's 2 large mines producing there, Lundin Gold, Fruta del Norte. They're expanding to 500,000 ounces a year. Head grades like 12 grams a ton. And so it's a pretty great deposit. And the other one is Mirador, which is a Chinese joint venture, open pit copper mine. Difficult to get any information out of it, but they're producing around 150,000 tons of copper a year. Cascabel, some of the things why we personally know that Ecuador is open for business. We just agreed with the government to extend our concession for a total of 33 years. 8 years is construction in the current PFS. It's a long construction period, critical path, bring underground development. Hence the phased approach where we start with a smaller footprint, a lot less upfront development. But we have 33 years to work on this project. We just signed this earlier, it was in July. So fairly new development, and so they're open for business. Other thing we worked on, and this is really critical, is the term sheet for the exploitation contract. This is our tax structure. In Ecuador, by law, your tax is going to be 50%. And so no matter how you get there, whether it be a royalty to the government or the sovereign adjustment tax or income tax, you're going to be right around 50%, a little over 50, 50.01 probably was where we're going to end up. But Lundin's there, the Chinese are there, anyone who builds a mine there, a large mine there like Cascabel will be, you're going to have that same tax rate. We favor the royalty. Again, everything's going to equal out. Why the royalty? Because 60% of the royalty, the revenue from that would go to the local communities. And we believe our ESG programs focused on, if you get the local communities on side, we've got a lot of employees, a lot of support from there's not a lot of people that live in our area, about 1,000 total in 3 different little communities. But they're all 100% supportive of the project, and so we favor the royalty. So we agreed to a variable royalty rate based on metal price, whether it be gold price, copper price. It's 3 different royalties. Can peak. You can read the number there, as high as 8%. 60% of that would go to the local communities. Next steps, Cascabel. I touched briefly on this again. With the merger with Cornerstone, we now have 100% of the asset. It was 85-15. We now have 100%. So when we bought Cornerstone, the primary motivator was to get 100% of Cascabel. So it's a development stage project, as you know, and we just got the exploitation permit. We just talked about that. We're working on the permit for the early works. That would be the start of the underground development. We've broken our permitting strategy, taking a page out of Lundin Gold's successful strategy, where we broke it into 4 different modules. So the early works, underground development, the concentrator, the tail storage facility, and then the pipeline and the other infrastructure, the pipeline to the coast for concentrate, the power line, et cetera. So there's 4 modules or permits, and they'll be combined in an EIS at the end. The advantage to that is, if we get the early works, we can begin to underground development, and again, that's critical path to production. The Apollo deposit, this is the computer model, a cross-section through the thing, and the high grade is the black. And we've got a hand-drawn cross-section before in the next slide. But again, in the gold is the high-grade core I was talking about, the 40-odd million, 442 million tons at 1.4% copper equivalent. That's where we start mining. It's a huge footprint, similar in size, if you looked at a plan view, as Chuquicamata. And so just like Chuqui, we're going to cave small portions of it, small being 200 meter, 300 meter block, right, in horizontal, and then vertical, it's about 1,000 meters high. So a lot of tons comes out of an undercut in this particular deposit. The upper portions, the next slide's probably better to look at. This is the hand-drawn section, obviously computer generated, but we draw all of our cross-sections by hand before they go into the block model. At any rate, the upper purple or upper pink, that's some high-grade material that we envisioned extracting by sublevel cave. And so that'd be the first ore that goes to the mill. The adits that access that, the concept is no shaft in this. In the current PFS, there's a shaft, a blind shaft, but we don't think that's the way to go presently. Anyway, we'll access this material with declines. And so we'd mine the top portion, and again, the size of those things, they're about 600 meter, about 400 meters in height, and about 200 meters if you looked at the cross section through that. So they're not small compared to the stuff at the depth. They are, but they're high grade. Again, they average about 1.4%, 1.5% copper equivalent as well. That would be the first ore to hit the mill as we're undercutting the block cave. Exploration. We've got a huge tenement package, and the merger of Cornerstone, in our top 10, 3 of those properties, in our view, top 10 as in geologic potential, came out of Cornerstone. And our real focus is to the north around Cascabel. And if you look at the light blue color there, those properties came out of Cornerstone. Why the north? It's porphyry copper country. We've got a discovery there. Codelco has this discovery to the south, and we really like the potential there. In the southern part of the country, you get into more epithermal type stuff, although all the way down by the Colombian border, our Porvenir property, we have a porphyry discovery there, and we talk a little bit about it, but it doesn't have the grade profile that we can see at Apala, so it just doesn't meet the criteria when we look at what we want to develop. So there's a huge package there. The mining catastra, which is the right to stake a tenement from the government, that's been closed for a number of years. So unless you have a package, you're going to have to acquire an exploration property from someone like us or others. There's a lot of other companies like Solaris has a package, and some other companies have a package as well. So that's why, you know, there's a lot of interest in our outside exploration ground. You just can't stake it yourself. So a lot of potential there, a lot of ground. It's close to 300,000 hectares. And so Cascabel, to give you an example, is 5,000 hectares. And so a lot of work's been done. The company spent about $100 million on outside exploration over the last decade. That's not Cascabel. It's expensive work because of the terrain, right? It's jungle, a lot of it, helicopter support, no roads, that kind of stuff, but it's got the right rocks. And so the exploration's tough, but it's, you know, there's the potential for some really world-class discoveries in the country. And like I say, Codelco's got one, that they're in a bit of a legal hassle with their partner right now, but it's close to Cascabel. It's about 50 kilometers south of Cascabel, so it's within that little circle we've drawn right there. So we're excited about this. We're not drilling at present. We've got a crew out identifying, working on the cornerstone targets to the north, near Cascabel, and we're in the field right now, basically designing the drill program. Once that's complete, we'll make a decision, should we begin drilling on that or not. Strategic review process. We're in a strategic review process right now, and really what does that mean? We're looking for alternatives, partners, a strategic partner perhaps, that might want to help us develop Cascabel. Maybe that's a concentrate takeoff agreement from one of the smelting companies. A lot of interest in our product because it's one long life, 100 years or whatever you want to do for this thing at whatever mining rate you want to pick, but long life, and it makes a very, very clean concentrate. There's no arsenic and other bad actors in the rock. Therefore, you can't concentrate it, try as you might. And so it makes a very good product, so there's a lot of interest. So that's an example of a strategic partner. A lot of interest, as I mentioned, in the outside tenements, because you can't, unless you have one now, you're not going to get one right now. And so there's a lot of interest there. So maybe it's a farm in on that, and we let somebody earn in. So we're looking at basically all possibilities. We, you know, nothing right now has happened. A lot of interest, a lot of tire kicking, I'll say it right now. But you know, we're talking to quite a few people right now, and you know, it's, again, there's a lot of people that want to get into Ecuador or that are now because of the rocks. Again, it's porphyry copper country, and if that's what you're interested in, and some pretty good epithermal gold if you look at Lundin. So there's a lot of opportunity in the country, and it's open for business. Copper M&A deals. And the firm that put this together, S&P, with some Price Waterhouse work, I believe. Well, you can read it as well as I can. And you know, the number of M&A deals that are happening, people are excited about copper. Look at, I mean, why did Newmont take out Newcrest? Was it copper or was it gold, or both maybe? You know, so it's copper is a place to be right now. I think you know, we all know what the use of copper is, but it's on the increase, the M&A activity on the copper side. And, you know, again, like I say, our strategic review process is ongoing. There's no set timeline for it, and something may happen or not. But we think we're coming up with a very good plan that would allow us to execute by ourselves if we chose to do so. Lower capital cost, shorter development timeline. But it's the thing about a deposit like Cascabel, the Apollo deposit, Cascabel project, is it gives you a lot of flexibility because it's large, because it's got some very good grade. So there's lots of ways you can look at developing this thing, and so it truly is a great project. Apollo, which is the Cascabel project, it's the second there where it says SolGold. According to this research, which is independent, you know, in the last few years, we contain about 20% of the copper that's been discovered. And obviously, there's some other great discoveries out there as well. And but this thing's big, and it's very good, very high quality, very consistent. It's a good porphyry system, good strong porphyry system. ESG, a lot of people have talked about that today. We're committed as others. Again, our ESG focus, wherever we're working, whether that be Porvenir in the south or here, is on the local communities. And we've got a number of really good initiatives. We follow the IFC standards amongst others, so we comply with the International Financial Corp, i.e. the World Bank / United Nations standards. At any rate, rare tier 1 asset. We think it's a very, very, very strong asset, and I'm out of time, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you much.
Thanks very much.